I don't know how many people talk to you about your voice, but I definitely want to delve into that. You have one of the most
Sure.
unmistakable voices in music, in my opinion. And
Thank you, man.
I want to talk about your voice as an instrument now. What strategies over the years have you cultivated in making your voice such a signature? Is that something you think about when you're recording or writing or anything like that?
It became something, I guess, after we had gotten signed and started. For me, really, I was just sort of trying to figure out what I sounded like, because to back up a little bit, I was a theater kid. So when I really wasn't ever a singer. So I only started singing when I was 17 because my heavy metal band couldn't find another singer. And I played drums, but our bass player could play drums and we knew a guy that could play bass. And
Hmm.
so I was just like, well, I'll just step out front and just try this. But
That's called the
during
precursor
those
to Craigslist, by the way, you guys out
I
there.
know, right? Well, but and during those times though, like I was just doing impressions of whoever it was. So I would just mimic whoever it was I was singing. So when I started doing original music, which wasn't until I started the band right before Bowling for Soup, so 2 years before Bowling for Soup, I didn't really have an idea as to what it was my sound was. Like what sometimes where to put that grit that I have a little bit. But backing up to the reason I said I was a theater kid was because I what I didn't understand was is that I already knew how to breathe. So I had already learned to breathe through my diaphragm from being on stage and being able to act, because when you're acting, especially in a stage situation, your nerves and adrenaline will sometimes push that oxygen out of your lungs. And so if you
Hmm.
don't learn to breathe from your diaphragm, you can't get air. And then all of a sudden you sound winded and you're not supposed to. And so it's very important and so learning to breathe was something I spent a lot of time on in that. So it never occurred to me that I was using all of these things, and that all of a sudden I could sing all of these insane things, and I just got better and better. And so yeah, I definitely developed what I considered to be my sound, and I I know what it is. I know what it is I sound like, and and I definitely can tell, like, if I hear something like a commercial or something, it's pretty obvious to me that, like, if they're not mimicking me, they're mimicking somebody that sounds like me,
That's
because I
right.
like people will call me and go, "Dude, is that you on this such and such commercial?" And I'm like, "No, but I heard it. I thought it was me."
So yeah, I just have to mention that because a lot of people out there who are consumers of music don't really have experience from the studio side of things.
Yeah.
I don't think fans out there realize how big artists are when it comes to their vocals and how important it is as an instrument, especially
Yeah.
from a studio environment. I mean, you're when you're in the studio, you're trying to get the right verbiage, the right intonation. Everything has to be perfect with the
Yeah.
melody. And yeah, I love to hear singers talk about their instrument. It's
It takes a lot of time. I my thing is that I try always to never be an overthinker, because the minute I get in my head about something, then I'm never going to be happy with it. So I don't know that anybody else is. And so, but the other thing about me that I think you'll probably find interesting if you talk to a lot of singers is I do not treat my voice any different ever. So I don't warm up. I do
wow.
not drink warm liquids. I don't do If I'm sick, I don't put honey or lemon in there. I don't do anything. I actually feel like my body goes the opposite direct. If I start to do something that I don't do all the time,
Mm-hmm.
it my body actually, I feel like it like pushes it away, like it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't want that. And so I drink ice cold water all the time, which singers are supposed to drink warm water. I don't drink warm tea before I sing. I don't, none of that. And I can't explain it, but my range is bigger than it's ever been. I can sing higher at 52 than I could ever my whole life. I'm like, my breathing is still great. I don't really lose my voice, my singing voice, even if I lose my talking voice when I'm sick. I've never canceled a show because of my voice being gone before.
Amazing, man. Very
Uh,
blessed. Very
knock on
blessed.
knock on wood,
Yeah.
and I realize that that's a gift. I totally, and I don't take it for granted at all. But I think sometimes, speaking of like getting in the heads, like you know, how it is. Like, I mean, I went to school. I studied marketing and psychology, and there's these things that your head can do to you, psychosomatic things where you can, you know, you're over there like all of a sudden making this tea, and then you're just worried about it, and
Yep.
it's like I go out there drinking a Miller Lite, and adrenaline pushes me through, and somehow it works.
Imposter syndrome, man, it's horrible. It is horrible. I deal with it every single day, and I never really cared about that kind of thing until I was creating content and doing live streams and podcasting and things like that. It's crazy. You can have all this confidence, but then your own self is just breaking that confidence down all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
It's yeah. I think you gotta, for me, I just always just assume that whatever I'm doing is the best thing in the world. Like I'm
mm-hmm.
like I just am like, yeah, this is gonna be amazing, and I just go about it that way, and
Do you speak it
I
out
can look
loud?
back.
Do you actually
Uh,
speak the
I
words?
mean, if there's people around me, I do. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I don't have a running dialogue. So this is an interesting conversation that happens with me and my wife all the time. She says she has like a narrator in her
Mm-hmm.
head, and I don't have that. So
I
like
do
I don't hear.
sometimes. I do sometimes.
Okay, but you've
Yeah.
had this conversation, right? Like,
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah, so I don't have it. So like if I think something, it just is. Like
Mm,
it's not in words. I don't hear a voice saying it.
right.
And she's like, "Oh my God, there's like this person. It sounds like me. It's narrating my life all the time. And like this is what's gonna happen and this and this." I'm just like, yeah, I don't hear
So what your
anything.
wife is talking about happens to me whenever everything's quiet around me, right? So like,
Yeah,
it drives my wife crazy because I have to have noise all the time, and it drowns
right,
out that voice for me. It
right.
sounds extremely like psychotic, but it's really not. It's
No,
just,
man, I get it,
yeah.
dude. I totally understand.
So, man, we talked a little bit about how many things Jaret does, or how many things he has done over the course of his career. And as a content creator, I look up to you for those reasons, man. Your schedule is so inspiring. But not just because of how successful you are in things, but because of the wide array of things that you do. From songwriting and producing to world tours, making music for Phineas and Ferb, and um, shoot, being the voice for Chuck E. Cheese, working in video games, you have your own podcast. Like, all this
Yeah.
stuff is happening in your life. Where do you find the time and passion for all of these different things?
Well, I guess it's that I don't really have passion for anything else other than, I mean, if I'm not with my family or sitting with my dogs, like I'd rather be up here creating something or making somebody laugh, or I mean, again, I like to hang out with my friends and just kind of but I don't really have any hobbies. Like there's not anything that I don't get excited to go fishing or any. I'll fish,
Mm-hmm.
and I play golf a few times a year maybe, but even then, like it's not. It's almost just something where I'm making myself get outside because I've been locked in here for 6 months,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think it's just that I just really enjoy creating things. I enjoy making music. I enjoy making people smile, and that's why I feel like social media wise, like it's just, I think there's a lot of people my age that complain about it. And I'm like, man, TikTok was made for me. I love making people laugh in 15 seconds or less,
Yep.
you know what I mean? Or whatever it is. And so, it's just a good, I just enjoy it. And it's what I love to do.
It's funny you say that because I have a social media schedule for short form content too. Like, we do podcasting and gaming, and I've done audiobooks and ASMR and all that stuff. Just trying to, give people a different form of content. But like, I have a short schedule too where I do a different joke every day, but it might be a different style of joke, maybe a dad joke or a pun or
Sure.
a one liner. But I've done a joke a day for almost 3 years now on short
Hell
form
yeah.
content. Yeah. And it's funny how much negativity you get just from trying to make people laugh. It's
Sure. Yeah.
super
But I
weird.
mean, that's just it though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's therein lies the thing. I mean, I seem like I have my shit together, but you know, I'm a I'm a mental health advocate, and I suffer from anxiety and depression, and I see two therapists, and so I don't. It sucks that I have hundreds of thousands of followers throughout all of these social media outlets, and like one dude can ruin my day,
Yep.
and but I've gotten so much better about it. But I used to, man, I can be really really mean, because I'm fast, and I'm
Mhm.
and I
Quick-witted.
grew
My
up with
wife
it.
says that all the time. You're too
Yeah.
quick-witted for your own good.
Well, and I grew up with an older brother, and again, I was a fat kid. I had to survive, and
Mhm.
so the way I survived was being funnier than everybody, and so, I if someone messes with me, I'll type it out, but most of the time I erase it these days. It's just like it's just not worth it. But
Yep.
yeah, you gotta have thick skin to live in that world, man, and it's you just can't make everybody happy all the time.
I got four more questions. You got time?
Sure, man, let's do it. Yeah,
All
this is
right.
great. I'm having a blast.
Awesome. Me too, man. I appreciate you again. So, yeah,
Sure.
we talked about your world tour that I believe you just got back from, right? You were in Ireland and other places recently.
We're kind of just starting actually. So this was all stuff on the back end
The last
of
tour.
the last tour. So we actually start our world tour in like 2 weeks. I believe it starts on like the 17th or 18th. And yeah, that'll be it's the whole United States. It's going to take us a few months to do that because we do it in I'm a dad, so we and so is Gary, so is Rob. We try not to be gone longer than 2 weeks at a time, and then we're home for a while, then back out. Now, when we're coming home for 2 or 3 weeks, on the weekends, I'm doing country,
Yep.
and so is Rob. So, staying busy, but and then we'll hit Australia, Japan. We'll be back in the UK, the whole UK in February, and so yeah, it's kind of just really getting rolling. But we were just in Bowling for Soup, just in Italy, UK, and a few shows in Ireland. We owed Ireland a few things because we had not we skipped them the last two tours. So we were able to go over there with these festivals and had a great time.
So all this busy, I guess the question I wanted to ask here is, what's your favorite part of all this, and what's your least favorite part of all this? Just the
Man,
madness that is Jaret Reddick.
yeah, I'll tell you, this is so simple that it's silly, but the thing that I hate the most is just the process of getting through the airport because we have so much stuff. We have I think 29 pieces of gear. Most of it's overweight. It's a real pain in the ass just to get checked in. And it's sort of like that thing where it's so much anxiety for me until we're on the other side of security. And that is my least favorite thing. I mean, I hate that worse than I hate being away from home, and I hate being away from home. Like I love my chair
Yeah.
and my dog in my lap, and he's 125 pounds, but he's a lap dog, and so um but again, the my favorite thing will always be just, I think it's the reaction that I see of people when they realize, let's say I start the song "Girl All the Bad Guys Want" and I hit the first three notes, and you just hear this reaction, and then you just watch every mouth in the room, however many people it is moving. uh I mean, that just never gets old.
The
it just
wrestling pop.
it's
That's what we call it, right? The wrestling
it it,
pop.
it's just it's amazing. It's
Hmm.
like, it's like I there are very few things in the world that feel like that I've experienced, and it's really hard to explain to people, but it's awesome.